Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I may have told you before about a children's book by Judith Viorst. While it is meant to be a children's book, it would seem to me that many adults are stuck in this childhood viewpoint. The story is called I'll Fix Anthony, and here's how it begins. My brother Anthony can read books now, but he won't read any books to me. He plays checkers with Bruce from his school, but when I want to play, he says, "Go away or I'll clobber you." I let him wear my Snoopy sweatshirt, but he never lets me borrow his sword. Mother says deep down in his heart, Anthony loves me. Anthony says deep down in his heart, he thinks I stink. Mother says deep, deep down in his heart, where he doesn't even know it, Anthony loves me. Anthony says deep, deep down in his heart, he still thinks I stink. When I'm 6, I'll fix Anthony. That does sound a lot like us, doesn't it? We're going to fix those who have wronged us and get even. We can't let anyone get the best of us. You know, you may never have thought about it, but this attitude is really rooted in pride. We think we don't deserve what someone did to us, so we've got to get them back. But like Gandhi said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth leaves the whole world blind and toothless. This week we're considering stories from the Bible that involved a cover-up. In other words, wrongs were done, and then actions were taken to cover up the misdeed so no one knew about it. The thing is, even though these stories are ancient, they are our stories too. Today, let's consider Joseph and his brothers. Jacob had children by both of his wives and by some of their maidservants. While that might seem strange to us nowadays, there were lots of complicated reasons why things like that happened in those days, and maybe we can explore some of that in future Pastor Gary Live episodes. Of all of these, Jacob had special love for his wife Rachel, and when our story begins, of all of Jacob's children, Joseph was the only one who had come from Rachel. It was no exaggeration to say that because of his love for Rachel, Joseph was Jacob's favorite. There were 12 brothers, but Joseph was clearly the favorite, allowed to stay home while the others had to go into the fields to tend to the herds. And Jacob gave Joseph a special garment. We've always thought of it as a coat with many colors, but recent biblical scholarship believes it was actually a coat with long sleeves, a rarity in that day. For all his brothers could tell, Joseph thought he was special too. He often told his brothers of dreams he had when they bowed down to him. They began to seethe and burn every time they saw him. Then one day, while the brothers were out in the fields, Jacob sent Joseph to check on them. And when they saw Joseph coming, they hatched a plan to get rid of this troublesome youth. They planned to kill him, but then a caravan came along, and instead they sold him into slavery in Egypt, getting rid of their problem and adding some cash to their pockets. That's when the cover-up began. They killed a goat and dipped that long-sleeved garment in the blood. Then, when they got home, they showed it to Jacob and said, "Look what we found on our way home. A wild animal must have killed your son." Not our brother, but your son. And that was where they left it. For years and years and years, Jacob grieved for his beloved son, never knowing peace. We may never have thought about this either, but those brothers had to suffer too, as they watched their inconsolable father grieve. while they kept their dark secret. What do you suppose went on inside those brothers, too, as they harbored this secret and were never able to tell a soul? How it must have eaten away at them to have done this to their brother. They could deceive their father, but they couldn't deceive themselves. They knew what they had done. They knew who they were. For us, too, sometimes sin can remain hidden for years, eating away at us inside, filling us with guilt and hidden shame. Deception may seem to protect us in the short term, but it causes long-term damage. This is not who we are meant to be. God calls us to honesty, to integrity with ourselves. God calls us into truth and invites us into confession and repentance. And like those brothers, we eventually find that God can bring redemption and renewal even from betrayal. Amazingly, Joseph didn't seek revenge. There was no fixing his brothers. Instead, by the time they encountered one another again, they had bowed down to Joseph, and Joseph was in a position to save their lives and that of his father too. You intended wrong to me, Joseph told them, but God intended it for good. Point: fixing each other isn't God's way. Forgiveness is. It's a lesson we learn ourselves with Jesus on the cross. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.